Hello, boys and girls, and welcome to Movie Goodness, where we examine life through cinema here on the KB Radio Network. I am your host, Kevin Reed, and I am super excited for today's episode. This is a film franchise that we're going to go over today that I have loved, well, my entire life. Being as though this franchise began the exact same year I was born. Yes, the Alien franchise, where the first film, Alien, was released in 1979. So me and this franchise have been on planet Earth for 45 glorious years. Now, I don't know which one of us made the world better in those 45 years. I would like to thank me, but I'm pretty sure millions of you around the world feel it was Ellen Ripley, and I can understand. You don't know me, but it's all good. You can get to know me now, and you can judge for yourself. But in all seriousness, I love this franchise. This is a franchise that has been through a lot of changes. You know, it's one of those film franchises that is not one singular thing, even though it's Alien. You know, it's all about aliens, these xenomorphs that are, they don't have any rhyme or reason. They just kill. You know, you can't negotiate with them. You can't talk to them. It's none of that. There's no ET phone home. There's none of that. They are vicious killing machines. And I love it, man. I love it because it's not explained. Their origins are not explained. Their reasoning for what they're doing, the things that they do, are not explained. But it doesn't matter because we're just here to see aliens burst out of people's chests, to see face huggers implant eggs down people's throats, and giant queen aliens rip androids in half. And that's the beauty of this franchise. But it's so different. When I talk about the differences, it's different because out of the 6 films in this franchise, I'm not counting the Alien versus Predator movies. We're not going to review those. I'm not even going to touch them. Forget those movies. Just throw them out of your head. But the 6 films that are actually Alien films, we have had straight up horror. We've had science fiction. We've had action. We had philosophical, religious debate. It's been a lot to go on concerning these films. You know, corporate greed explored, the treatment of prisoners and stuff like that. All of that has been explored in this franchise about killer aliens. You know, and it's cool. It's cool. Some were great, some not so great, but I can argue for a vast majority of these films that this is a great franchise. Yeah, 1 or 2, maybe not, you know, 1 or 2, not 1 and 2, but 1 or 2 of them you can probably throw out. But I can make an argument for that one, and we're going to go over that when we go through these films. And the other one, it was what it was. You know, it wasn't horrible. I felt as I think it was just a product of the time that it was released. But you may ask yourself, why are we talking about aliens today? Well, the reason we're talking Alien today is because of the release of Alien Romulus, which is a film that I am so hyped up for. I in the past couple of years, I've learned to temper my expectations in film because I get so hyped up. I get overhyped, and I go to the movies and just get my feelings crushed time after time, and I got tired of it. And so I decided to temper my expectations going forward from that moment. But every now and then a film comes along that I just can't contain it. If for some strange reason Alien Romulus is that film. That watching the trailer, I remember that first teaser trailer, which didn't really show you anything, but it freaked me out. And I was like, man, this feels like the original. It feels like the first film that came out in 1979, which was basically a horror film. And it creeped me out to no end. And I was in at that moment. And when the full trailer was released, I was like, oh my God, take my money. This is going to be beautiful. That film is directed by Freddie Alvarez, who directed the uh, uh, Evil Dead film from a few years ago. Which was kind of a reboot, uh, or a I don't know how you describe it, but it was good. It was really, really good. He also directed Don't Breathe, which was just a shockingly good film. And so I was excited when he took this task on. But yeah, I'm super excited for that film, and I was so excited that I went back and watched all six of these Aliens films. And I said, since I'm watching these films and I don't know any other opportunity to review them, we're going to review them all today. Alien, which was released in 1979, a great year, may I add. Aliens, which was released in 1986. Alien 3, released in 1992. Alien Resurrection in 1997. Prometheus in 2012, as well as Alien Covenant in 2017. And so we're going to go through all of these films and review them one by one. I was going to rank them, but I really can't rank them because the first two on my list are just perfect to me. And so it's like, it wouldn't be fair. I couldn't give a fair ranking of these movies. And so I decided I'll just review all of them individually and roll in that fashion. Some franchises I'll rank, but others I'm just going to review, especially in franchises like this where the vast majority of the films I truly enjoy and I want to talk about more. So that's really the sticking point why I decided not to rank them. But you can put them in order as I give my grades. You know which one is favorite. But in any event, before we get to the reviews, let's break down this franchise. It's a science fiction horror action franchise centered around the original film series that depicts warrant officer Ellen Ripley, who is portrayed by the great Sigourney Weaver, as her battles with an extraterrestrial life form, commonly referred to as alien or xenomorph, and the prequel series following the exploits of David 8 Android, which is portrayed by Michael Fassbender, and the creators of Creatures, referred to as engineers. We'll break that down when we get to those two prequels. But first, let's jump in to the one that started it all. We have 6 films to review, so let's not prolong the time. Let's jump into Alien, released in 1979. It was directed by Ridley Scott. This was his second film that he ever directed. It was written by Dan O'Bannon and is based on a story by Dan O'Bannon, and it follows a crew of a commercial spaceship who, after coming across a mysterious derelict spaceship on an uncharted planet, find themselves up against a deadly and an aggressive extraterrestrial loose within their vessel. This film stars Tom Skerritt, Sigourney Weaver, Veronica Cartwright, Harry Dean Stanton, John Hurt, Ian Holm, and I can never get his name right. You fat Koto. I can never get his name right, but he's the only black man in the movie, so you know who I'm talking about. But in the event, this film kicked off this franchise, which I don't think it was intended to do. It was just a one-off, as a lot of franchises are. But this kicked off the career of Sigourney Weaver as Ellen Ripley. Now, initially, Ellen Ripley was written for a man. This was a male role. This was not meant to be a female lead, which is innovative for the time, because you didn't have that. If you did, it was sparing, and I mean sparing, but not for a big studio film like this. Other than being the damsel in distress or the love interest to the hero, you know, stuff like that. But as far as being the lead of a film, this was kind of the first, at least the first that I've seen. And like I said, this is one of the first horror movies I ever saw, you know, technically. And to be honest with you, as many female action stars or action movies that have come out since then, none top this one, because Ellen Ripley is a different type of quote unquote action hero. You know, we get into the action portion later on in this series, actually in the next movie. But even with that, she's not a quote unquote action hero per se. But this was more of a survival type situation, like most of the films are. And it was running away. It was her capturing the fear of the situation. But I'm getting a little ahead of myself. I was going to talk about the actors a little later, but you get my point. She is amazing in this role. She was born to be Ripley. I mean, literally born to play this role. And this film, what makes this film so special, it's not the nostalgia of it. It's not because of Ridley Scott and what his career became and everybody else's careers. Rather, it was in front of the camera or behind the camera. It was it was impacted by the success of this film and how well of a job they did with this source material. Well, with this material, the atmosphere. And one thing about horror films, whether it's in space or in your house, it doesn't matter. You have to set the tone. You have to make your surroundings a character within itself, you know. And on this spaceship, it was claustrophobic, and I'm claustrophobic, so it really hit home with me. But that claustrophobic feel, the lights, the dirtiness, the drip, the water dripping on the walls, and all this stuff, it was just it was like being in hell. If you could imagine hell, that's hell without the fire. It was just I don't know. It's a situation you just don't want to be in, and that's what a horror movie is supposed to put you in. And so that alone was just dreadful. Then you put a alien that is hiding and picking you off one by one in the mix. My God, this is this is a pure horror show. But the crew of this ship, they look like truckers. They look like actual truckers that if you stop at a truck stop, these are who you see wandering around at this truck stop. You know, they just look like blue collar. I don't know. I don't know how to describe them, but they just look like true blue truckers. Average, ordinary working men and women. And, you know, around this era, when we're leaving out of the 70s into the 80s, mid 80s, when we get these action movies and these science fiction movies, and you see our heroes, they got, you know, the Schwarzenegger build, Stallone builds, and, you know, they look like brick houses. They look like they can tear apart an army by themselves and all this other stuff. And you look at a movie like this where it's just average, ordinary people in this situation, people that look like me and you, that puts fear in you. And it was smart casting in that sense. Speaking of the cast, I've already touched in on Sigourney Weaver and her performance as Ripley. Her ability to kind of switch into this quote unquote leader towards the end of this movie, as people are getting picked off, and the situation is becoming more dire and dire. How her character grows with this sense of strength, yet still holding on to that fear factor, still holding on to that same fear when the chest burster scene happened, and we're gonna get to that. But it, from that moment on, this turned into a horror movie, and for her to keep that going, man, beautiful job, beautiful job. That's why she's been doing this role, performing in this role for so long. She hadn't came back in a while. I think she have hung up the space helmet by now, but it's it was great for her to be in these films because she's such a strong character. And we're going to see it develop into something even stronger later on in these films. But in this one here in particular, I think this is one of the better performances by her. Because number one, it established who this character is, what type of person she is, that she builds on later on. And it's such a natural progression of this character. That's why she's so celebrated as one of the favorite heroes in cinema. And I can't agree with him more. Tom Skerritt, love Tom Skerritt. Is it me? Is Tom Skerritt underrated? You never hear Tom Skerritt's name brought up in, on these lists of great actors, or, you know what I'm saying? And he has been solid for decades in everything that he's in. Even now, I still see him pop up in things now. He is a solid actor. He's one of my favorites. I always enjoyed Tom Skerritt. And good old John Hurt. John Hurt in this film, he plays Kane. And I remember watching this because it came on around the time Aliens came out. Because I seen Aliens before I saw Alien. I didn't know they were related. I didn't know they were that was a sequel. Did not know for about a year or two. That goes to show you how intelligent I was. But I did not know that this was a sequel. I think my brother told me. 'Cause he was like, yeah, in the first one, yeah. The first one, I was like, it didn't say part 2. This just says Aliens. He was like, no, it's Alien. I'm like, wait, that's the first one? And he kind of gave me the look, like, my brother's an idiot or whatever. But it was, I didn't put the two together. I don't know what's wrong. But anyway, I saw Aliens first. And so I had an idea what the facehuggers do when I did see Alien. But even knowing what was coming, this movie found a way to make it frightening, scary, and real. All the films that we're about to go over in a couple of minutes have chest bursting scenes, but none look as brutal, as painful, as real as the one popping out of John Hurt's chest in this movie. Oh, it's still when I rewatched it the other day, actually a couple of weeks ago, I'll still kind of like hid my eyes, behind my head like I did when I was younger. I was like, oh my God. Now there was one in the other one that kind of freaked me out was in Covenant, I think. Alien Covenant. That one kind of freaked me out. But not like this one. This one was brutal. I mean brutal, and you know it was practical. You know, not practical in the sense they actually opened up John Hurt's chest and but you know, on the set. It's 1979. They didn't have CG. And so it looked so real and so terrifying. And man, the actors around that table, from what I understand, now I've saw videos on this and read articles about this. For years, the saying was they did this in one take. I find it a little hard to believe that if you know how movies are made, you know, and you're dealing with practical effects and whatnot. I find it a tad bit hard to believe, but whatever. They say they did it in one take, and the actors didn't know that the chest burst was going to happen. Now they probably did it in one take, the actual burst, and just they were supposed to go on 3, and they just did it on 1 or something like that, and it shocked them. But that look of surprise and shock and awe on their faces was real. That's the report. Now, I also read another report where they said, no, we knew it. I think it was Sigourney Weaver, or I could be wrong. I don't want to misquote anybody, but I did read that somewhere that, like, no, we knew it was happening. That's just good acting. And I can believe it. I can believe it either way. I can believe it either way. But that was an awesome scene. And that's when all hell broke loose when the alien started terrifying the crew. This is the start of the mistrust of the androids. Ian Helm as Ash, the android that we didn't know it was an android until later on in the movie, and he's working to not destroy the alien but capture the alien for the company. And so that was cool. Have that little element thrown in there as well, adding the rock and the hard place factor into it. You know, you fighting this alien and the corporation at the same time. So it just added a different level of dread in this film. This is one of the best horror / science fiction films ever made. You can't deny they've had some awesome science fiction films and some horror elements in science fiction films since. I will point you in the direction of Event Horizon. That was an awesome science fiction horror film. And that's about it. That's all I can really think of, you know. The other films in this franchise doesn't capture the horror as this one do. It really everything after this turned into action and science fiction, or just straight up science fiction. This was the true horror film in the franchise. I loved it for that. I loved it for everything else that it just clicked. Everything just clicked. Everything was perfect. Nothing was out of place. That's why Alien from 1979 gets a letter grade of an A. It's a certified classic. It is close to perfect as you can get. You know, there's a little gripe that I have that I didn't mention, but I guess I'll go ahead because I'm pretty sure you're probably wondering why I didn't give it an A+. Well, and it's stupid. I know it's stupid, and I went over it again and again and again, and I just could not put the plus on it. But the reason is it just felt like it took too long to get to the alien. You know, you watching the alien, and part of that is because, like I said before, I watched it out of order. I saw Aliens before I saw Alien. And so my level of expectations was an action movie, and what I got here was more of a horror thriller science fiction film, and I wasn't expecting that when I watched it for the first time. Now when I watch it now, not so much. I don't have that gripe, but it's still there because you want to get to the alien. I mean, the movie's called Alien. But you do want to establish your characters and all this other good stuff. And so I get all that. It's not bad. None of it is bad. It's just a personal thing with me. I wanted to get to the alien. I wanted the movie to start and boom, xenomorphs. But other than that, the movie is great. The movie is perfect, but I still just can't give it the plus. But it does get an A. Now, moving on to the sequel to this classic. Back in 1986, James Cameron stepped into the director's chair fresh off the smash hit The Terminator. He jumped right back into this science fiction horror genre with Aliens. Returning from Alien is Sigourney Weaver, reprising her role as Ellen Ripley. No other people returned from the first film because they all died. Spoiler, but she was the sole survivor of that alien attack in that film. And this film, like I said, it didn't have the horror elements. James Cameron directed probably the second best science fiction horror film. Actually, I don't want to put those two in the same category. Alien and the Predator, the Terminator. They're two different films, but as far as science fiction and horror is concerned, but Alien was in space, and so I'll just keep it in space. But here on planet Earth, I would say just was the Terminator was one of the best science fiction horror films, and with action as well. Of his time, man. I mean, they still trying to make Terminator movies to live up to that film, that and T2. But it all started with Terminator, and Terminator just checked all the boxes. It was perfect. But in any event, we're not here for Terminator. We're here for Aliens. Him directing this film was, once again, smart hire by 20th Century Fox at the time. He jumped right into this franchise, and the first decision was, there's no horror here. We're not going to bring any horror elements. This is going to be a science fiction action film instead, which is 1986. It makes sense because that was the bee's knees, all the action movies. This is the height of Schwarzenegger. This is the height of Stallone. In a couple of years, we're going to get Bruce Willis. We're going to get Mel Gibson and Danny Glover. We're going to get all of these action heroes around this era. And you can throw Sigourney Weaver in the mix as well, who reprised her role, as I said, as the sole survivor of an alien attack. And when communications are lost with a human colony on the moon where her crew first encountered the alien creatures, Ripley agrees to return to the site with a unit of space marines to investigate. This go around, Sigourney Weaver is joined by Michael Biehn, Paul Reiser, Lance Henriksen, Carrie Hann, and the late great Bill Paxton. This, spoiler alert, this is my favorite film in the franchise, hands down, no cap, as the kids would say. I love this movie. I don't care when it's on, what channel is on, what version you get. I'll stop and watch this movie. I cannot get enough of Aliens. It's just, it's a film that I know backwards and forwards. And I had a tough decision to make when reviewing this film. Am I going to review the theatrical version or the special edition? because there's a special edition with additional scenes. The movie's a little longer, and that is a superior version of this movie. The theatrical version is amazing. The theatrical is perfect where it is. It didn't have to touch it. But adding those extra scenes, for some strange reason, made the gold shine a little brighter on it. You know what I'm saying? It just was perfect. For example, this film, you have the character of Newt, the little girl that was that they found and was protecting and whatnot, and Ripley had this bond with her, had this relationship with her to protect her, this motherly thing, and she was just driven like a mother, protecting or those, you watch the Discovery Channel, the wild animals that protect their young. That's what she was. It was like she was actually her mother. And you get it, you want to protect this child, but this was something different. There was something deeper there. You don't understand why in the theatrical version. But when you watch the special edition, you completely understand why. And it's just one little scene. It was when she was discovered after 57 years in that cryostasis. She's awakened, she's found, and they inform her that her daughter had died. I think she was 70 something years old or something to that effect. And Ripley still looks the same, because she was in cryostasis. And she was like, I was supposed to be back for her 12th birthday or something to that effect. And she was just tore up. She was broke. I mean, her daughter died. She missed 57 years of her life, it's crazy to think of it that way. But yeah, her being a mother was robbed from her because of this situation that happened in the first film. And so when later on in the film, when she finds Newt and gets this protective motherly instinct charged back up, you completely understand why. And it just made the movie better. I don't know why they cut that scene, because the scene wasn't that long. Maybe 2 minutes long. And it didn't disturb the flow of the film at all. At least that's my opinion. But it is what it is. It's still great. And the other extra scenes were they were trying out those guns, those motion detector guns inside of the vents and all this other stuff. And the aliens were testing the guns, seeing if the bullets would run out, we can, they were strategizing, and it was showing how intelligent these aliens were. They weren't just wild animals, so to speak. And that was cut out. And I kind of get that, but I would have loved to have seen, like, oh man, those things stink. That's even scarier, but they cut that out, and there was a couple of other scenes that were kind of whatever, but they were still good scenes. But in any event, the special edition is the superior version to watch of Aliens. But this movie was so exciting. Once again, the scope of it, the scale of it, the action sequences, the way this Marine Corps made me want to join the Marines. The ironic part of this, my brother ended up joining the Marines about 3 years after this movie came out. I don't think that was the reason, but if that played a little part, I can understand, because the Marines in this movie were cold-blooded, man. These Marines made Navy SEALs look like Boy Scouts. I mean, they were cold-blooded. I was hyped up for them. I loved them. I loved them all. I wanted to fight with them. But the camaraderie of those actors, who I think they went through boot camp and all that together, to build a relationship before before filming began and whatnot, and you could tell they really had a bond. You know, they truly were a unit. You know, and it helped made the movie feel a little more authentic, even though they're in space fighting aliens, but it still felt a little authentic. But the mere fact that James Cameron and these actors set up these Marines to be just an unstoppable force, and you're like, oh yeah, they're gonna kick these aliens behind. You know, they don't stand a chance. And the fact that these aliens tore them up, just just the mere concept of that. Now we saw what one alien can do in the first film. Now you have a planet full of them. Basically, it felt like it just hundreds of these things, if not thousands, and they're just tearing through these Marines, man, and still finding a way to do it one by one. It was so exciting to watch, but it still had a little element of fear involved, but nothing that I would consider horror or scary. But like I said, you're in this for the action, and it had some great action sequences. The action involving Sigourney Weaver here. Now, this is where she became an action star to me. This is where she became an action hero to me, when at the end of the movie, when she had the gun and the grenades and the fire launcher, flamethrower, that's what it is. I couldn't get it out. The flamethrower and all that other good stuff, going to get nuked and burning up the eggs. And then you get the biggest reveal, one of the biggest reveals, literally, in movie history, when the Queen emerges. This giant alien. Oh my God, a Kanju alien. Man. And the battle between Ripley and this Queen alien, as she was in this forklift suit that was set up earlier in the film. I mean, way earlier, so far into the film that you forgot that thing was even there. This is great storytelling. That's why James Cameron is a genius making films. Planted that little foreshadow at the beginning of the movie, and we don't get it again until the end, until the very end. And for them to have a literal fisticuff was amazing. And I enjoyed it from beginning to end. It's one of those movies that will make you sweat watching it. You know, that type of action, that type of excitement. It still did it. You know, me watching it a couple of weeks ago, it still had me hyped up and exciting. James Horner, R.I.P., his electrifying score that just booms through the speakers. It's, man, what a film. They don't make movies like this no more. I miss these type of movies. But we can always go back and watch Aliens from 1986, which gets a letter grade of an A+. Yeah, I don't have any problems with this. It's nothing that there's nothing that bothered me with this film. Nothing at all. Oh, the other scene that they had cut out were the colonists, the human colony that was there, and we saw how they end up getting swarmed by these aliens, with Newt and her family, and we see all that, establishing this colony of humans on this planet. So that was the other thing, which once again they could have kept that in the movie, but I don't know why they cut it, but it didn't matter. Still was perfect in my eyes. Aliens from 1986 gets an A+. So we move on. We move on to yet another alien film. This time in 1992, we get, I guess, a return to horror in a sense. It do have a lot of horror elements, really no action elements at all. So it does depart from that we got in Aliens, but it doesn't have the same horror as the first Alien. You know, it doesn't have that I don't know, just doesn't have that magic that the original had. But with that said, I wasn't expecting it to have that same magic. You know, I was just in it for the ride. I love this franchise. Alien 3, which is directed by David Fincher. Yes, David Fincher in his directorial debut, returning yet again Sigourney Weaver as Ellen Ripley. And this is the third installment to this franchise. And this film went through so much to get made. It was almost to the point where they were like, man, forget it. Don't worry. Just let it go. I mean, they had so many problems with this production. David Fincher hates this movie. He hates it. He disowns this movie. And I don't know why. Because I liked it. And this was the movie that I mentioned in the beginning where a lot of people don't like, but I actually like. I can actually justify that it was good for what it was. And I think it was more of the behind the scenes of it all, why David Fincher hates the movie, you know, because there was so many cooks in the kitchen and he really couldn't get his vision across. And plus he's a first time filmmaker at this point. And so nobody really is going to pay him any mind. But joining Sigourney Weaver in this film, you have Charles Dance, Brian Glover, Charles S. Dutton, Rock himself, Ralph Brown, Danny Webb, and many more. This film is set after the events of Aliens, and Ripley and an alien organism are the only survivors of the Marine spaceship following an escape pod crashing on a planet housing a penal colony popularized by violent male inmates. This turned in. There was so many versions of this movie that that was supposed to come out. I remember the teaser trailer coming out the year before, I guess in 1991, where they released it in front of some movie I went to go see. And they showed Planet Earth. And the whole tagline was, this time they come home, or something like that. It was like they were going to be on Earth. And I was like, oh man, they're going to have the aliens there on Earth this time. Oh, this is going to be messed up. And I think Rennie Harlin was going to direct at that point. Rennie Harlin, who directed Die Hard 2, he had directed The Long Kiss Goodnight, and a lot of action movies. Pretty decent director. He is who he is. But anyways, it went through a lot of directors until David Fincher was attached. But anyways, it was supposed to be set on Earth. Then it was supposed to be set in this monk colony, like this planet of monks. And then it was this prison planet, and they combined the monks and the prison planet together for this version, where all the prisoners now found God. You know the people. We know people that went to jail, come out and they done found Jesus. I don't know why Jesus is always hiding in jail, but it is what it is. And they come back and go right back to what they're doing. But anyways, yeah, they combined all that, and this movie started filming without a finished screenplay. They were writing scenes the day before to film the next day. I'm not joking. It was pieced together with spit, bubble gum, and duct tape. And so the mere fact that this movie got finished, that it got made, that it was watchable, is amazing to me. That's why I don't hate this movie. And I didn't know that going in. And so when I watched it, I actually enjoyed it. But when I found out, of course, years later, what all took place behind the scenes and whatnot, I was like, oh my God. And it was that good? And it still turned out pretty decent? Is it up there with Alien? No. Is it up there with Aliens? No. But it's good. I did enjoy the atmosphere of this film. It was dark. Of course, it's David Fincher. It's going to be dark. But the camera work, the claustrophobic feel of it all. Yes, it had those elements, and that worked. The way the alien moved in this film, this is at the starting point, not really the starting point, but this is when visual effects were starting to ramp up in film, and you can do more with certain things. And this film, we started doing a little more with the xenomorphs. Now he can crawl on the ceilings and whatnot, and it was freaky. And the point of view shots that David Fincher was using in his film was awesome. I loved that, chasing these inmates up the corridor and all this here. I thought was amazing. It was exciting and thrilling and frightening all at the same time. Sigourney Weaver. I mean, can I say anything bad about Sigourney Weaver at this point? She is the character. I mean, we're 3 movies in. If she was bad, it's a problem. But no, she was great in this role. In this role, once again, she takes it to another level. This go around, spoilers, she's infected, or should I say impregnated, with an alien preparing to burst out of her chest. So we got that element in here as well. And with this new alien running around taking these inmates apart, and whenever it gets close to her, backs away from her and won't kill her because he senses the queen, because it's a queen. And that's one of the gripes I had about this film. How did she know it was a queen? It blew my mind. But anyways, I'll get to the negatives. I have a few negatives, of course. But yeah, I like that element, though. I did like the fact that it wouldn't kill her. It wouldn't kill her until the very end. He really tried to kill her. He was like, look, I done tried. I done did everything trying, and you still trying to kill. Man, that's it. That's it. I'm about to tear you apart. But anyways, my negatives of this film, yeah, I didn't like that. I didn't like that she knew it was a queen. Now, I know they did the X-ray thing and all this here. I don't see how you could tell the difference, and especially going by that picture. I don't see how you could tell that was a queen. It was like automatic, like she's the foremost expert in xenomorphs. Yes, you encountered these things, but come on. Come on, that's kind of weird. I didn't like the fact that you killed off 2 major characters off screen. You killed off Hicks and you killed off Newt. Before the movie even started, the ship crash lands and they die in the crash. What is this? These were 2 major. That's what made the second film so uplifting. That was great that Ripley wasn't the only survivor. She had her quote unquote daughter. She had her quote unquote significant other. This big happy family who defeated the xenomorphs. They won and rolled off into the sunset. And this film starts off, they're dead, and she's impregnated with an alien. So it was like, man, you just can't win, Poe Ripley. Of course, the writing wasn't all that good, and that's to be expected when actors are reading lines that were literally just written maybe an hour ago, and they got to deliver these lines. It was just a couple of, not a couple, it was a few scenes in here that just didn't work, dialogue wise. And I was like, man, it's like Chat GPT or whatever wrote the screenplay back in 1992. But yeah, other than that, the film is watchable, because I've heard it described as unwatchable. No, I don't think it's unwatchable. I actually enjoy it. I would seek it out, to be honest with you. When I rewatched it a couple of weeks ago, I was enjoying myself. I had the same feeling I felt when I left the theater in 1992. I had fun with it, and I mean, what more can I ask for? It wasn't great. It wasn't great by no stretch, but it was what it was. Alien 3 from 1992 gets a letter grade of a C plus. Yeah, it was pretty good. I thought it was, you know, one of the better ones. Definitely better than one I'm about to talk about next. But it's, if I had to choose between the two, I would definitely pick Alien 3. But in any event, let's move on to the next entry into this franchise. And it's none other than Alien Resurrection from 1997. This science fiction horror, in quotations, film, which is directed by Jean-Pierre Jeunet. And it is written by Josh Whedon. Yes, that Josh Whedon, who went on to give us Buffy the Vampire Slayer and the first two Avengers films in the MCU. Yes, he wrote this monstrosity of a film, which I think was his first Hollywood writing gig. I think I read that somewhere. Correct me if I'm wrong. If it's not the first, it's one of the first. But man, my God, returning for a fourth and final time in the role of Ellen Ripley is Sigourney Weaver, joined by Winona Ryder. And this is the fourth installment of the Alien franchise. This film is set 200 years after the previous installment, Alien 3. Ellen Ripley, who died at the end of Alien 3, by the way, spoilers, is cloned, and an alien cream is surgically removed from her body. Now, that's strike number one for this movie with me, and it has always been a strike ever since I watched it in 1997. Reason being, I watch these movies religiously. I love these movies. At no point in Alien 3 did Ripley bleed or anything, whereas they could get DNA to clone her. She threw herself in a pit of fire before the alien burst out of her chest. So I don't know where they got the blood from. Honestly, don't know. But once again, I know we have to suspend disbelief. It's just a movie, Kevin. You need to relax. I get all that, but come on, some things are just dumb. This is basic. Watch the movie. Just watch the last movie, and you would know that is impossible. But maybe I'm nitpicking. I don't know. But it just bothered me to no end. This movie is a product of the 90s, the late 90s. This is what movies looked like back then. It was just silly. They just did silly, stupid stuff. There are scenes in this movie that don't belong in any movie whatsoever, let alone an alien film. You have a scene where Ripley is playing basketball. And she's on a spaceship, people. And she's playing basketball. And toying with this other crew and playing around with her. And in the way they have her character. This is the one time. And sadly, this is the last time we get to see Sigourney Weaver as this character, and this is what we're left with. She was just a complete departure from any iteration that we got of Ellen Ripley in any of the previous three films. Why? I mean, just why? Leave her alone. They could have went a completely different route. There were ways they could have made this movie without Ripley. They didn't need Ripley, but I understand they're tethered together. She's the franchise. That's like trying to make a Die Hard film without John McClane. I understand all that. How can you make a Rambo film without Rambo? I understand all that. But in that case, don't make an alien film. I mean, you didn't have to make this story of aliens. There are other stories. From all accounts, and I hope I'm not speaking out of school because I haven't seen the movie yet. Alien Romulus doesn't have Ellen Ripley in it, and so it's a standalone. And so you didn't need to tell Ellen Ripley's story. This had nothing to do with Ellen Ripley. Technically, it wasn't Ellen Ripley. It was a clone. I get that as well. But to be fair and honest, I don't like clones. I don't like the concept of clones in film. It's like a cheap way out to me. I don't. It's the answer to all the questions. Oh, it's a clone. It's dumb. The only time I liked it was in Multiplicity with Michael Keaton. I love that movie. That's the only time I like clones in that in that movie. Any other movie, can't stand it, and I didn't like it here. The rest of the cast, they were fine. They were what they were. It just felt like a parody of an alien film. It didn't feel like a real alien film. You know what I'm saying? It just felt cheap. It felt like a cash grab. It just felt dirty. It felt dirty to watch it, like you was violating some type of law, or some commandment from out of scripture or something. I can't put my finger on why this movie just offends me. It truly offends me. Now, what redeems this movie from getting an F, because it was close to getting an F, what redeems it is they have a couple of scenes in here that I really enjoyed. I thought they were well filmed, well choreographed, action sequences. But aside from that, the story, the pacing, the atmosphere just did not work for this movie. And overall, the movie just didn't work for me. Alien Resurrection, released in 1997, gets a letter grade of a D minus. Yeah, man. This is a bad way to go out for Sigourney Weaver. She went out perfectly. She went out perfectly in Alien 3. That was the perfect send-off for that character. And they found a way to mess it up. and they did it in epic fashion. Anywho's, we move on to the final two films in this franchise, and they served as prequels to the Alien franchise. Starting in 2012, the science fiction horror film Prometheus, and this go around returning to the franchise is the original director of the original film, Ridley Scott, and he's directing an all-star cast in this film with Naomi Rapace, Michael Fassbender, Guy Pearce, Idris Elba, Logan Marshall Green, and Charlize Theron. This film is set in the late 21st century. The film centers on the crew of the starship Prometheus as it follows a star map discovered among the artifacts of several ancient Earth cultures. Seeking the origin of humanity, the crew arrives on a distant world and discovers a threat that could cause the extinction of human species. This film was super highly anticipated around this time because we're back in the Alien franchise after 20 years almost, 15 years, something. I don't know, bad at math. But in any event, it was a return to the franchise, a return of Ridley Scott, a new cast, a prequel. We're going to see, it was perceived, I guess you could say, that we're going to find the origins of the xenomorphs and all this other good stuff. All right, cool, cool. Count me in. And the cast was outstanding. And then the movie came out, and everybody hated the movie. I didn't hate the movie. I actually enjoyed this movie. I still enjoy this movie. Now, the problem I have with this movie, it shouldn't be an alien film because aliens have nothing to do with this movie. It is nothing to do with it. It is its own separate thing. This is more of a film. If you want to get technical, this is a film set in the alien universe, but it's not connected to aliens. It's like the MCU, right? The MCU as a whole are Marvel films, but you have other solo films in the mix, like Deadpool and Wolverine. They don't have nothing to do with the Avengers. You know, even though they mention the Avengers and all that stuff in the movie, they don't have nothing to do with the Avengers. Captain Marvel and all that, they don't have nothing to do with the Ant-Man film. You know, they're in the same universe, but they're just not connected in that way. That's the way I look at Prometheus. Prometheus is in the universe of aliens. It's just not connected in that way. You know, that no matter how they set up the end with this giant xenomorph coming out of the engineer and all that. Now the engineers, okay, let me start off by saying this. I am what a lot of people would consider a Christian. I believe in God, I believe in Jesus, I believe in the Holy Spirit. And I believe the teachings of Jesus, and I believe what the Bible says. And so with that being said, I can watch movies. I can watch movies and not take it for 100% accuracy and truth. Movies are just that, movies. You know, they're there for your entertainment. So when you have stories like this, it doesn't bother me. And I'm saying all this because I had a discussion earlier this week, ironically enough, about this same thing. Like, how can you watch movies like that? It's a movie. It's a movie. What you want? It ain't like I'm sitting there worshiping what they say, you know, taking what they say with and running with it. Yeah, I'm not an idiot. I do my own research and everything. And so no, I don't run with that. And so I say all that to say the opinion that I'm giving is not coming from me as a believer in God. It's just coming from me as a film lover. And so that's all I'm trying to say. Because I know people's gonna be like, "Oh, he's only saying this because he's a Jesus freak and all this other stuff." Man, relax. I didn't like the engineer plot. The engineers don't work. The whole concept of the engineers didn't make sense. It didn't make sense in this movie, and it didn't make sense in Covenant. They're useless subplots in this film. I don't know what they were thinking. I don't know what they were trying to do. They were trying to discuss a deeper issue here, and I understand that aspect of it, going back into the spiritual aspect of everything, how our lead character was a believer of God, and it was because she chose to be a believer in God. She believes this, even though she discovered that they're engineers that created human beings and all this other stuff. She still believes in God. And so the discussion came up in the film. Like, well, there's your proof. Where's the proof of your God? You haven't proved anything about your God, but we have proof that these engineers created us. And she had one of the coldest comebacks in film history, I think. She's like, well, who created them? And she couldn't give an answer. So that was her whole mission. She wanted to find out who they are, how they came to be. And so anyways, despite all that, I still don't think that worked in this film. This movie was slow, very, very slow, and at parts very, very silly. I know a lot of people make fun of the end of the movie with the spaceship crushing Charlize Theron's character, because she doesn't know how to run in a zigzag motion to avoid being crushed by by the ship. But it look, I liked elements of this film. It was shot beautifully. It looks gorgeous. It's a gorgeous looking film. It's not scary. I thought with Ridley Scott returning, we was gonna get some of that alien flavor. We didn't get it though in this movie, and I was a little disappointed by that. But overall, it was a decent movie. I just felt it shouldn't have been part of the Alien franchise. You could call this something else, and it would have been fine. And to be honest with you, they tried to call it something else. They and it still linked it with the Alien movie. Because honestly, if I didn't tell you, if you go watch this movie, and I didn't tell you that this was part of the Alien film franchise, and you knew nothing about it, you probably wouldn't even question it. And if I come and tell you, yeah, this is the prequel to Alien, and you probably sit there and say, how? How? And I still don't know how. It makes no sense. But it's an all right movie. It just doesn't fit in the franchise to me. Prometheus, which came out in 2012, gets a letter grade of a C. Yeah, it was average. It's watchable. It's good. You know, clearly not the worst in this franchise, but also clearly not the best either, which what I was hoping for. But a lot of people did not like this movie. A lot of people complained there was no aliens. A lot of people complained that they were duped into watching this movie. And so, what did 20th Century Fox decide to do? They told Ridley Scott, look, we want you to make another one of these movies, but you gotta put aliens in it. It's gotta have aliens in the movie. And you also have to put alien in the title. So in 2018, they released Alien Covenant. This is the 6th film in the Alien franchise. This is the 3rd film of the franchise directed by Ridley Scott. Returning for Alien Covenant is Michael Fassbender. Along with him, you have Catherine Waterston, Billy Culp, Danny McBride, and others. This go around, it follows the crew of a colony ship that lands on an uncharted planet and makes a terrifying discovery. All right, with that in mind, you know that, okay, this sounds like an alien film. That's the same tagline as the majority of these movies, so we're back to formula. Makes sense? Let's go. Once again, it still didn't have that pop. It still didn't have that magic. The problem with these last 2 films, Alien Covenant and Prometheus, is they focused on David, Michael Fassbender's character. They focused on the android, and the android's the villain, you know. I never understood. And he's an android. He's not human. And so you couldn't connect with him. So that was a huge, huge, huge misstep by Ridley Scott, who is a phenomenal director. So I don't understand that choice. But there was no connection there. And the choice to follow him and cheer him on at times with the other version in this film, because there are 2 of them. Michael Fassbender plays both roles. It just didn't connect, and I think that hurt the film. Hurt both of the films, to be honest with you. You killed, once again, like Alien 3, you killed the main character from the previous film off screen. Why? Why? Well, actually 2 to be technical, because also in this film you had James Franco was in this movie. Now I think around this time, this is when James Franco was getting in a little trouble with the Me Too movement and all that stuff. So I think they kind of secretly cut his role out, but he had a little role in the film, but he died off screen. Anywho's, this film is a sequel to Prometheus, and it's the prequel to Alien, and uh, it still never set nothing up. You know, is it better than Prometheus? I feel it's the same. I feel it has the same vibe. There's nothing really there. Uh, this would have been a more interesting film, at least these two films, if this was about the whaling company, you know, the company that's in charge of all this stuff, and the infatuation with this alien species, you know, exploring that, getting into that. I would have enjoyed that, but that's not what we got. I thought it was setting it up. It felt like it was setting it up for that, but it never came to be. I really don't know what the direction of these two films are. And I know it's not fair to Covenant that I keep throwing in the Prometheus with it, but they're linked together. These are the only two films in this entire franchise that are conjoined twins in a sense. You know, they're literally linked together. I couldn't tell you the reason behind actions taken by characters in this movie. Some of the dumbest decisions by characters that you're going to see in a film ever. And these were smart people. These weren't Kevin Reeds on this ship. These were scientists and biologists and anybody with a "is" as a title at the end of their profession. They were on this ship, so they knew something. You know, they had a bit of intelligence. I couldn't tell, man. They made some of the dumbest decisions in movie history. I mean, just completely stupid. But look, I'm all for having fun in movies. That's fine if you're in it to have fun. But this movie was kind of set up to be something serious, and they failed miserably. Now, were there parts in this film that were exciting? Yes. When we did get aliens involved in the film, it was great. I loved the alien in this movie. The chest bursting scene, I mentioned it earlier when we was talking about the first film. This chest burst scene with Billy Cullen was just there's another one that had me kind of cringing. You know, it is still when I watched it a couple of weeks ago, it did it again, and I knew it was coming, but it's like, oh my god, and it was just, I don't know, but I got a thing with that. I forgot what the phobia is called, but stuff coming out of you is not. It's not my cup of tea. Well, of course, I would imagine nobody likes that, but I actually have a phobia, a straight up phobia of it. But yeah, it was freaky. And they had other scenes, you know, some exciting scenes throughout. The first encounter with an alien on the ship where the thing comes out of the dude's back. That was something new. You know, we never saw that in this franchise before. What else? Yeah, that's bad. And I just watched the movie. I can't even remember. But overall, it's decent. It's nothing that I would seek out, to be honest with you. The only reason I seeked it out this time because I had watched the previous 5, so I said, well, I might as well cap it off. So that's what happened. But I didn't hate it. There's only one film in this franchise that I have a strong dislike for, but I don't hate any of them. But Alien Covenant, which was released in 2017, gets a letter grade of a C-. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, this is a film franchise that is blessed to have 2 classics to start it off with. And that's the reason why it's hard to imagine a world where we don't get Alien IP. You know, when Disney bought Fox, it was kind of scarce because you're thinking Disney. Disney not going to make any alien films. You know what I'm saying? But they are. They found a way. They are going to make it, and they just made one. And not only that, don't look now, but we are getting a TV show. I think it's called Alien Earth, if I'm not mistaken. I read somewhere, and this is going to be on Fox, not Fox, FX, and Hulu. And I believe they started filming. I gotta check on it. But it is in it. They rocking and rolling with it. So I'm all for it. The same guy who gave us Fargo on FX, he is the showrunner here. And hey, sign me up. Fargo is great. He also did that X-Men show. What was it called? Legion. He did Legion too, and Legion was pretty brutal. And so I want to see what he does with this. I'm excited. You know, I can see Alien as a television show. I actually I can see it more of a streaming series. I'm shocked that it's coming on FX and not just straight up Hulu. I know it's going to be on Hulu, but a show like this, man, if you're going to do it justice, do the aliens justice, yeah, you're going to have to hide it for the kiddies, I think. But we shall see. Hopefully it comes out soon. I'll be anticipating it, but I can tell you this, I am already geared up, already bought my ticket for Alien Romulus opening night. So I am, boy, I'm excited. I'm a little worried going to see it at night. I don't know. I may be tossing and turning that night, but we shall see. Hopefully it turns out good. Hopefully it lands in the top half of these films and not the bottom half of these films. As long as it's better than Prometheus, Alien Covenant, and what's the other one? Resurrection, I'm happy. If you can stay in Aliens, and Alien 3 territory, we're good. Actually, you got to be better than Alien 3. And I like Alien 3, but you had to be better than that too. So, but we'll see. But I would like to know, what is your favorite Alien film? Is it Alien, Aliens, Alien 3, Alien Resurrection? Is it Prometheus? Is it Alien Covenant? I would love to know which one. And are you planning to go check out Alien Romulus this weekend in theaters? Email the show, kbradiopodcast@gmail.com. You can also search for the show on all social media platforms. Just search for the KB Radio Network. Also subscribe to the KB Radio Network channel on YouTube and like this video if you don't mind. While you in the liking move, don't forget about the 5 stars, sharing and reviewing this show if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, wherever you are currently listening to movie goodness here on the KB Radio Network. Everybody, thank you for joining me for this definitive review of all of the Alien films in the franchise. Want you all to know that I love you. Continue to love everyone. And until we speak again, you all be blessed.